In the heart of Africa's most remote wilderness, where ancient giants roam and danger lurks behind every shadow, an extraordinary rescue unfolded that defied everything we know about animal behavior. When a massive python seized a helpless baby gorilla, an unlikely hero emerged from the forest silence. But what happened next, and the mother's shocking reaction, will leave you speechless and forever change how you see these magnificent creatures.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
Deep within the Sangha Trinational rainforest, where Cameroon's ancient wilderness meets the borders of two other nations, nature orchestrates its most dramatic performances. The morning mist clung to towering mahogany trees like ghostly veils, their massive trunks disappearing into a canopy so thick that sunlight barely touched the forest floor. Here, in this cathedral of green, life moved to rhythms unchanged for millennia. The air was thick with humidity and the earthy scent of decomposing leaves, while the distant calls of hornbills echoed through the emerald maze. Streams of filtered sunlight created dancing patterns on the moss-covered ground, illuminating droplets of dew that sparkled like diamonds on every surface. This was a place where time seemed suspended, where the modern world felt impossibly distant. Giant ferns unfurled their prehistoric fronds in slow motion, and somewhere in the distance, the gentle splash of a hidden waterfall provided nature's soundtrack. The forest floor was a tapestry of fallen leaves in every shade of brown and gold, creating a soft carpet that muffled the footsteps of its inhabitants. Butterflies with wings like stained glass windows drifted through shafts of light, while the sweet fragrance of blooming orchids mixed with the musky aroma of the rainforest. In this primordial paradise, where every shadow held mystery and every sound told a story, families of great apes had made their home for generations. The forest provided everything they needed: fruit-laden trees, fresh water, and the security of isolation from the outside world. It was here, in this seemingly peaceful sanctuary, that an extraordinary tale of courage, instinct, and survival was about to unfold.
In a clearing where ancient buttress roots formed natural amphitheaters, a small gorilla family had settled for their afternoon rest. Casey, a 3-month-old mountain gorilla with coal-black fur and bright amber eyes, was the heart of this peaceful scene. Her tiny fingers, no bigger than a human child's, grasped playfully at her mother Amara's thick silver-streaked coat as she nursed. Casey was still small enough to ride on her mother's back during long journeys through the forest, her curious eyes constantly scanning the world around her. Her movements were endearingly clumsy, those characteristic gorilla chest beats were more like gentle pats, and her attempts to swing from low branches often ended in tumbling onto the soft forest floor with excited grunts. What made Casey special was her fearless curiosity. While other young gorillas stayed close to their mothers, she would venture just a little farther, investigating colorful beetles, touching unusual leaves, and watching birds with an intensity that suggested an old soul in a tiny body. Her soft cooing sounds when discovering something new had become the soundtrack of the family's daily life. Amara, her mother, was a magnificent silverback female with gentle but watchful eyes. At 15 years old, she had raised 2 other offspring to independence, and her experience showed in the relaxed way she monitored Casey's explorations. Her massive hands could crack tough nuts with ease, yet she groomed her baby with touches so gentle they barely disturbed a single hair. The family group also included Django, the dominant silverback whose presence provided security for the entire clan. His enormous frame, nearly 400 pounds of pure muscle, made him an imposing figure, but around little Casey, he was surprisingly tender, often allowing her to climb on his broad back like a living playground. In this moment of perfect tranquility, with Casey contentedly exploring a fallen log while her family rested nearby, No one could have predicted that danger was silently approaching through the dense undergrowth, moving with the patience of a predator that had learned to wait for the perfect moment to strike.
While Amara dozed in the dappled sunlight and Django kept watch from his elevated perch, little Casey's attention was captured by something extraordinary. A cluster of the most vibrant red fruits she had ever seen hung tantalizingly from a vine just beyond the family's resting area. These weren't the familiar figs or berries she knew. These fruits seemed to glow like tiny lanterns against the green backdrop, their crimson color so intense it appeared almost unnatural. The sweet, intoxicating aroma that drifted from the fruits was unlike anything in her young experience. It carried hints of honey and tropical flowers, a scent so alluring that it seemed to call to something deep in her primate instincts. Casey's nostrils flared as she caught the fragrance, and her amber eyes grew wide with fascination. She had never seen anything so beautiful or smelled anything so enticing. The fruits swayed gently in the humid breeze, each movement releasing another wave of that irresistible perfume. To her inexperienced mind, they represented the ultimate treasure, something rare and precious that nature had somehow placed just within her reach. Without hesitation, Casey began to move toward the vine. Her tiny hands reached out eagerly, her focus entirely consumed by the promise of tasting something spectacular. The fruits seemed so close, yet as she approached, they appeared to be just a little further away, drawing her step by step away from the safety of her family circle. Behind her, Amara remained peacefully unaware, trusting in the familiar sounds of her baby's gentle movements. The rhythmic breathing of her sleeping family members and the distant calls of forest birds created a lullaby of security that masked the soft rustling of leaves as Casey ventured further from their protective presence. As Cassie reached for the first crimson fruit, her small fingers barely grazed its surface before it seemed to drift just beyond her grasp. The vine swayed mockingly in the breeze, carrying its precious cargo further into the dense undergrowth. Determined and enchanted, the little gorilla followed without hesitation, her entire world narrowing to those glowing red treasures. Each step took her deeper into a part of the forest where the canopy grew thicker and the air felt heavier. The cheerful bird songs that had filled the family's resting area gradually faded, replaced by an almost unnatural quiet, broken only by the occasional drip of moisture from overhead leaves. The forest floor here was different too, softer, with layers of decomposing vegetation that muffled her footsteps completely. What Cassie didn't realize was that she was entering the territory of the forest's most patient predator. This section of the rainforest was known among the local wildlife as a place where animals simply vanished. The thick undergrowth provided perfect camouflage, and the soft ground absorbed even the largest footsteps. Overhead, the interwoven branches created such dense shade that it felt like perpetual twilight. The sweet aroma of the fruits grew stronger with each step, clouding the baby gorilla's usually sharp survival instincts. Her mother's warnings about staying close seemed like distant memories as she pushed through curtains of hanging moss and stepped over fallen logs covered in strange fungi. The very air seemed to pulse with an ominous energy that her young mind couldn't interpret. Behind her, the sounds of her family became fainter and fainter until they disappeared entirely. The familiar grunts of contentment and the reassuring presence of Django's protective watch were now replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to press in from all sides. Even the insects had grown quiet, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Still mesmerized by the fruits that continued to dance just out of reach, Cassie ventured deeper into what locals called the Shadow Grove,
a place where the ancient trees grew so closely together that predators could remain hidden until the very last second.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emerald moss lay 20 feet of pure predatory power. The African lock python had been waiting here for 3 days, its cold blood conserving energy while its heat-sensing organs detected every warm-blooded creature that passed nearby. This ancient serpent, thick as a telephone pole and marked with intricate diamond patterns, had survived in these forests for over 2 decades by perfecting the art of patience. The python's yellow eyes, each the size of a coin, tracked Kisi's approach with calculated precision. Its muscular body, capable of crushing bones with ease, remained perfectly still as the little gorilla drew closer to its hiding place. The snake had been injured in a territorial battle with a rival python weeks earlier, leaving it desperate and dangerously hungry. A young, isolated primate represented the perfect opportunity to feed and recover. As Kisi finally reached for the lowest-hanging fruit, stretching her tiny arm toward the vine that had lured her so far from safety, the forest exploded into chaos. The python struck with lightning speed that defied its massive size, its powerful jaws clamping down on the baby gorilla's shoulder with bone-crushing force. Kisi's startled shriek of terror pierced the humid air as the serpent's muscular coils began wrapping around her small body like living steel cables. The attack happened so fast that Kisi's mind couldn't process what was occurring. One moment she was reaching for the beautiful red fruit. The next, she was trapped in an inescapable nightmare of scales and crushing pressure. Her tiny fists beat helplessly against the python's smooth body as its grip tightened with methodical precision. The serpent's strategy was simple but deadly effective. Constrict with each exhale, never loosening its grip, until the prey could no longer draw breath. Kisi's panicked cries grew weaker as the coils tightened around her chest, cutting off her air supply. In the suffocating embrace of the predator, the little gorilla's world began to fade as her desperate calls for help echoed unanswered through the silent grove. With each passing second, the python's grip tightened like a living vice around Kesi's fragile body. The baby gorilla's initial screams of terror had weakened to desperate whimpers as the massive serpent methodically squeezed the life from her tiny frame. Her once bright amber eyes began to dim as oxygen became scarce, and her small hands that had moments before reached eagerly for the red fruits now clawed weakly at the snake's impenetrable scales. The python, sensing victory, adjusted its coils with the calculated precision of a predator that had claimed countless victims. Each time Kesi managed a shallow breath, the serpent tightened its grip further, cutting off her air supply with ruthless efficiency. Her little chest convulsed as she fought for each precious breath, her body growing limp as the crushing pressure increased. Meanwhile, back at the family's resting place, Amara stirred from her peaceful doze. Something was wrong. The forest had grown too quiet, and more importantly, she could no longer hear the soft sounds of her baby's exploration. A mother's instinct honed by millions of years of evolution sent alarm signals racing through her consciousness. She lifted her massive head and scanned the clearing, her gentle eyes suddenly sharp with concern. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Kesi was nowhere to be seen. Amara's peaceful demeanor transformed instantly into something far more primal and terrifying. She rose to her full height, her powerful muscles tensing as a deep, guttural roar erupted from her chest. This wasn't the gentle call of a concerned mother. It was the battle cry of a protective parent who would tear apart anything that threatened her child. Jengo, the silverback leader, immediately responded to Amara's alarm call. His massive frame exploded into action as he, too, realized the baby was missing. The ground seemed to tremble beneath his 400-pound frame as he joined Amara in her desperate search. But in the shadow grove, Kesi's world continued to fade. Her struggles grew weaker. her breathing more labored, as the python's ancient killing technique slowly claimed another victim in the endless cycle of survival. Through the dense rainforest, moving with the silent grace that only giants of her kind possessed, came Temba, a 40-year-old matriarch elephant whose massive frame belied her ability to move through the forest like a whisper. Her weathered tusks, yellowed with age and scarred from decades of forest life, had seen countless seasons change in these ancient woods. What made Temba extraordinary wasn't just her size, but her uncanny ability to sense distress across impossible distances. Temba had been foraging nearly a mile away when something made her stop mid-step. Her enormous ears, each the size of a dinner table, swiveled forward as she detected something that most creatures would miss entirely: the faint, desperate cries of a baby in mortal danger. While other animals might dismiss such distant sounds, Temba's maternal instincts, sharpened by raising 7 calves of her own, recognized the universal language of a young life in peril. She had earned her reputation as the silent guardian among the forest dwellers. Unlike other elephants who announced their presence with trumpet calls and crashing through undergrowth, Temba have learned to move with surprising stealth. Her massive feet, each the size of a dinner plate, found purchase on the forest floor with barely a sound. Years of navigating these dense woods had taught her which branches would bend silently and which paths would support her 6-ton frame without betraying her approach. As she drew closer to the shadow grove, Temba's trunk extended forward, sampling the air with remarkable sensitivity. She could detect not just Kessie's fierce scent, but also the cold reptilian musk of the python, and something else that made her blood run cold: the metallic scent of a life ebbing away. The ancient matriarch had intervened in predator attacks before, but something about this situation felt different. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath as she approached, and even the insects fell silent in her presence. Temba's small, intelligent eyes hardened with determination as she prepared to face whatever danger awaited in the shadows ahead, knowing that seconds could mean the difference between life and death.
As Temba emerged into the shadow grove, the scene before her triggered an immediate tactical assessment. The massive python had wrapped itself around the tiny gorilla with deadly efficiency, its muscular coils forming an almost impenetrable cage of scales and sinew. But Temba had faced pythons before, and she understood their singular weakness, their complete dependence on maintaining their grip to survive any confrontation. The matriarch elephant knew that a direct charge would be catastrophic. The python would likely crush Kessie instantly if it sensed a major threat approaching. Instead, Temba employed a strategy that had served her species for millennia: the power of psychological warfare combined with precise physical intervention. She began by positioning herself at the optimal angle, using her massive bulk to cast an even deeper shadow over the grove. Then, with movements so subtle they seemed almost supernatural for a creature her size, Temba started her approach. Her trunk, an appendage containing over 40,000 muscles and capable of both incredible strength and surgeon-like precision, extended toward the deadly tangle. The python, focused entirely on maintaining its killing grip, didn't immediately notice the enormous presence approaching from behind. Temba took advantage of this tunnel vision, moving with the patience of a creature that understood timing could mean everything. When she was within striking distance, Temba executed her plan with devastating effectiveness. Her trunk shot forward like a massive whip, wrapping around the python's head and neck just behind the skull, the one area where the serpent was most vulnerable and had the least leverage. The impact was tremendous, but controlled, designed to shock rather than kill. The python's response was immediate and exactly what Temba had anticipated. Startled by the sudden attack from an unexpected direction, the massive snake instinctively released its coils to defend itself against this new threat. Its powerful body uncoiled with lightning speed as it attempted to turn and face its attacker. In that crucial moment of release, Kisi's tiny body fell free from the serpent's deadly embrace, gasping desperately for the air that had been squeezed from her lungs just seconds before.
As Kesi's tiny body hit the soft forest floor, gasping and trembling, the world around her seemed to explode into chaos. The enraged python, now free from its prey but locked in combat with a 6-ton elephant, thrashed wildly in Temba's powerful grip. The massive serpent's muscular body whipped through the air like a living weapon, but the experienced matriarch held firm, her trunk maintaining its iron grip behind the snake's skull. For several terrifying seconds, the battle raged with prehistoric fury. Temba's massive feet stomped the ground, sending vibrations through the forest floor as she maneuvered to keep the python's striking head away from both herself and the vulnerable baby gorilla. The serpent, desperate and furious at losing its meal, coiled its powerful body around Temba's trunk, attempting to use its crushing strength against her. But Temba had one crucial advantage: her sheer mass and the leverage it provided. With a motion that seemed almost casual despite its tremendous force, she swung her trunk downward, slamming the python's head against a fallen log with devastating impact. The blow stunned the serpent long enough for Temba to release her grip and step back, positioning herself protectively between the dazed predator and little Kesi. The serpent, desperate and furious at losing its meal, coiled its powerful body around Temba's trunk, attempting to use its crushing strength against her. But Temba had one crucial advantage: her sheer mass and the leverage it provided. With a motion that seemed almost casual despite its tremendous force, she swung her trunk downward, slamming the python's head against a fallen log with devastating impact. The blow stunned the serpent long enough for Temba to release her grip and step back, positioning herself protectively between the dazed predator and little Kesi. The serpent, desperate and furious at losing its meal, coiled its powerful body around Temba's trunk, attempting to use its crushing strength against her. But Temba had one crucial advantage: her sheer mass and the leverage it provided. With a motion that seemed almost casual despite its tremendous force, she swung her trunk downward, slamming the python's head against a fallen log with devastating impact. The blow stunned the serpent long enough for Temba to release her grip and step back, positioning herself protectively between the dazed predator and little Kesi. In the sudden silence that followed, Kesi lay motionless on the moss-covered ground, her tiny chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. The trauma of the attack had left her in shock, but she was alive. Temba, still alert for any sign of the python's return, gently lowered her massive head toward the baby gorilla, her trunk extending to carefully check for injuries with the delicate touch that only elephant mothers truly understand. From the depths of the forest came a sound that sent chills through every living creature within miles. A roar so primal, so filled with maternal fury that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. Amara had finally tracked her baby's scent to the Shadow Grove, and what she saw there triggered something that went beyond normal gorilla behavior into the realm of pure, terrifying instinct. The sight of her motionless baby lying on the forest floor with a massive elephant standing nearby caused Amara to lose all sense of reason. She didn't see Temba as the rescuer. She saw only a potential threat near her wounded child.
What happened next would be seared into the memory of anyone who witnessed it. Amara transformed into something that resembled a force of nature more than an animal. Her massive frame expanded as every muscle in her body tensed for battle. Her gentle mother's hands became weapons as she charged toward Temba with a speed that defied her size. The sound that erupted from her throat was unlike anything heard in these forests, a combination of roar, scream, and something far more primal that spoke of a mother's willingness to die protecting her young. Temba, wise in the ways of maternal instinct, recognized immediately what was happening. Rather than defend herself against the charging gorilla, the elephant slowly backed away, her trunk raised in a gesture of submission that spoke of her understanding. She had done what needed to be done. Now it was time for family to reclaim family. Amara reached her baby and immediately scooped Kessie into her powerful arms, checking every inch of her tiny body for injuries while maintaining a threatening posture toward any perceived danger. Only when she felt Kessie's weak but steady breathing did her rage begin to subside. As mother and child reunited in the dappled shadows of the grove, Temba quietly melted back into the forest from which she had emerged. The ancient matriarch had once again proven that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism are performed by those who expect nothing in return except the continuation of life itself.
Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.